Good evening from RocketLab Launch Complex 1 and happy Friday. You are looking at our 67th Electron rocket standing ready for liftoff from our launch site on the east coast of New Zealand as we await T0 for this Symphony in the Stars mission for a confidential commercial customer. My name is Muriel Baker and with me is Kim Thompson. We're joining you from Rocket Lab's Mission Control Centre in Auckland, New Zealand for tonight's launch.
Thanks, Muriel. It is great to be here. We're in the final few minutes of the countdown now, with the launch operations team aiming for the very end of today's launch window at 9:24 p.m. local time. We're tracking no issues on the hardware side with Electron or the payload, but the operations team has been keeping a close eye on wind gusts that may exceed our launch limits. If anything were to put us into a hold during the remainder of today's count, we have plenty of other opportunities later in the week.
Now, tonight's mission is headed to a 650-kilometre low Earth orbit to deploy a single satellite for our customer. This mission is the first of two dedicated launches that we're flying for this particular operator, with the second launch to meet the same mission requirements scheduled to take place before the end of the year from Launch Complex 1 as well.
Right now, though, for this first dedicated mission, we are just 12 minutes and 55 seconds away from liftoff as the team prepares this 67th Electron rocket. Now, the closer we get to liftoff, the more that launch preparations are automated under the watchful eye of the teams at range and mission control, of course. But one of the final gates we need to pass through to reach that point is the go, no-go poll. This is the operator run-through conducted by the launch director in mission control. Each engineer on console will report whether their station is green, or go for launch, or whether there are any watch items in the lead up to liftoff. Our launch director, Paula Tares-Seralongia, will be leading the poll shortly, so it's time to listen in.
And all stations held in mission core, proceeding with the go, no-go sequence stage.
Stages go.
Avionics. GNC.
GNC is go.
Vcon.
Vcon is go.
T1.
T1 is go.
GC.
GC is go.
PLS.
PLS is go.
RSO.
RSO is go.
MET.
MET is go.
MM.
MM is go.
LD sub.
LD sub is go.
Copy all. Go, no-go sequence complete. We are T-minus 11 minutes, 22 seconds and counting. We are go for terminal count to sequence starting at T-minus 10 minutes. From this time, the three-word procedure is in effect.
All right, we are go for launch from LC1. That was a clean run through the poll from mission and range controls, and the clock continues on at T-minus 10 minutes, 58 seconds and counting to launch. Right on time for our scheduled liftoff at 9:24 p.m. local time. The team is ready, the payload is ready, and Electron is also ready for launch. Let's do this.
Well, today's mission will be our 67th launch overall and our third launch in the past 3 weeks from Launch Complex 1. Symphony in the Stars is launching on a south-southwest trajectory at a 96-degree inclination to a 650-kilometre low Earth orbit. The rocket you can see on LC1 Pad B is an 18-metre two-stage launch vehicle made of carbon composite, and that is what gives Electron that unique black look across its structure. Without fuel, Electron weighs about a tonne, but once it's fully fueled with liquid oxygen and kerosene for its propulsion system, Electron reaches a liftoff mass more than 12 times that.
Now, the engine behind that propulsion system is the Rutherford, a 3D printed electric pump bed engine that powers both the first and second stages of Electron. Now, there are 9 on the booster and a 10th on the second stage that is vacuum optimized to operate in the conditions of space. And at sea level, Rutherford can produce just over 5,600 pounds of thrust each, but combined, all 9 fire at 50,600 pounds of thrust to lift Electron off the pad.
Now, on top of that second stage is our innovative kick stage with the payload attached. The kick stage is a highly configurable and manoeuvrable platform that carries the payload to exactly where it needs to go on orbit. You'll hear a bit more about our capability there shortly. The kick stage has its own propulsion system and an engine called Curie that has the capability of multiple restarts in space. And this means it can perform orbit raising and lowering manoeuvres depending on the mission. And the brilliant thing about the kick stage's ability to relight its engine is that it can then send itself on a deorbit path once the mission's done, helping to minimise space junk in orbit.
Avionics, please proceed with sequence 57, avionics terminal checks.
Sequence 57 in work.
Stage LD in mission court.
LD stage.
Stage, please proceed with sequence 58, stage terminal checks.
Sequence 58 in work.
S-band is switched to high power for flight.
Okay, so 67 Electron launches to date to deliver 227 satellites to orbit, with the 228th on board today's 9th launch of the year, and now just 7 minutes, 52 seconds and counting until liftoff for the third time in 3 weeks. Our numbers are looking pretty good. In fact, it is the precise numbers with which we can program the kick stage that has been so integral to many of the missions Electron has launched lately.
And there's been a bit of a theme to this year's launches as well, with the majority of them helping to build out new constellations of small satellites in low Earth orbit. Here's how.
So this is where Electron really, comes into its own, as we're able to, take the spacecraft and the customer and build their constellation spacecraft by spacecraft and put them exactly where they need to be for the longest lifetime and the most effective economics. There's 2 ways to get to orbit. One way is through a rideshare where you agglomerate a bunch of spacecraft onto one rocket, and the other way is to go and do it in a dedicated fashion, more like Electron, where you put a singular spacecraft on the top of the rocket and you get it exactly to where you want to go. Now, the one thing that we've seen over time is that rideshare missions have proved really, really important for initial customers to go there and put one spacecraft on orbit and kind of get a proof of concept. And then after that, we find more often than not, they'll come to RocketLab and request a bulk buy of Electron launches in order to deploy their constellation. And what that means is that they're able to accurately place each one of those spacecraft exactly where they need to be to build that constellation in the most commercial manner possible.
You can think about it as kind of like an Uber service. So we'll customize our missions to suit the customer's needs. We launch when they need and to exactly where they need to go to. Any special requirements that they have, we'll even engineer new processes to make that happen. We've created new guidance algorithms to be able to launch some of our upcoming missions.
Yeah, we have a saying within RocketLab is once you fly Electron, you never go back. And that's proven to be true. Customers come to us because we have just such great control over the accuracy of the position of the spacecraft and great control over the timing. We can put the spacecraft exactly where it needs to be, exactly when it needs to be. So customers can build their constellations quickly with us and also very accurately.
If they're wanting to build up a constellation from scratch, a lot of customers have an orbital plane requirement. So with target right ascension of the ascending node or longitude of the ascending node. So for any satellite or sets of satellites, we can get the spacing between them exactly how the customer wants.
Well, people care about dedicated because time is money. And deploying the constellation to exactly where it needs to be, over the area where the density of population or the density of services is super important. I think a lot of people think just space is space, but it absolutely is not. Every satellite has a postcode, if you will. Every satellite has a place that it is ideally suited to be to provide the best service to everybody.
You can imagine that would be talking within kilometres, tens of kilometres when we're talking accuracy. When customers come with us, usually they request on apogee and perigee plus minus 15 kilometres and on inclination plus minus 0.15 degrees. What Electron usually achieves is actually within a couple of kilometres on the apogee and perigee, and on the inclination we're accurate to usually the second decimal place. Our best to date was for flight 50. On the apogee we were 8 metres the perigee 3 meters, and the inclination was plus minus 0 degrees.
So when we say precise, we mean precise. 3 meters is next level.
Okay, so as you can see, our T0 countdown clock has paused at 4 minutes and 57 seconds. And since we were aiming for the very last opportunity at the end of our launch window, that means we are scrubbing for today's launch attempt for Symphony in the Stars. We'll update what the next opportunity will be on our social media channels and website, and we'll see you there shortly to share what that next launch attempt will be. Thanks for tuning in.